G'day everyone and welcome back to the Pokestraya YouTube channel. It's Jordan here, and today we're going to be taking a look at this Darkrai Giratina deck, a deck that keeps fading in and out of the standard format as far as playability goes, and just of how many people are actually trying this deck out. Just when you think people are done with this deck, Rainbow Road's too popular at the moment, Giratina doesn't really do much. It comes out and does really well at a regionals. So this deck actually saw a lot of play in Florida regionals, and I think there was like 4 or so Darkrai Giratina decks at Top Cut, which is just crazy to me. But being an outsider for this event, just watching on, I was surprised that Darkrai Giratina was very big at this event and that it was doing very well. So we're going to look at this deck today and kind of go over it and why it's still considered a good deck. Still very strong. I just think after US Nats, people kind of wrote this deck off, and then it was okay at Worlds, didn't really do too much. It was here and there, and then it just kind of comes back after the regionals and does very, very well. So this deck revolves around this Darkrai EX with a Dark Pulse attack, which does 20 damage plus 20 more for each Dark Energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So you can just load up a bunch of Dark Energies, or you can use this Giratina EX along with double Dragon Energy, which counts for 2 Dark Energies, and just kind of power this thing up, have these double Dragon Energies in play, counting as the Dark Energies, fueling that Darkrai EX's attack, whilst also using this Giratina EX to kind of lock your opponent as well. Renegade Pulse ability, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Mega Pokemon. This was always a good ability. However, we kind of went into that Night March phase. Mega Pokemon saw a huge decrease. Now, Mega Pokemon are all the rage. They're seeing so much play. Of course, there are cards like Hexmaniac and Garbodor in the format, but if you don't run into these, this Renegade Pulse ability is going to be very, very strong against these Megas. It's also got the Chaos Wheel attack, which does 100 damage, and your opponent can't play any tools, special energy, or stadium cards from his or her hand during his or her next turn, which is also very strong in a lot of particular matchups. Things like Mega Rayquaza, you can Chaos Wheel after playing a Parallel City, and then they can't put the Skyfield down, they can't put a DCE down, they can't put a Spirit Link down. Of course, there are ways around this as well. Things like Ranger, even Marowak from Fates Collide. Whilst it doesn't see play, it's still a card that can kind of ruin this Giratina EX. Jirachi is another one. Stardust Jirachi can kind of slow this card down a lot, but it's still a very good card. So we're playing a 2-2 line because, one, for space reasons, and also you don't really need more than this. You can try and squeeze a third. If I was to put a third of either of these, I'd probably put a third Giratina in, just because I think it's better for the deck. For support, we're going to be playing a 2-2 Garbodor line. Garbodor is just another card that's really good in this deck. It just locks your opponent down completely, especially when you compare it with a partner with that Renegade Pulse attack, the Chaos Wheel attack, sorry. It can be very good, and also just Garbodor fits well in this deck. I like having this Garbodor in this deck. It's just a nice card to have, really. You've got the space for it. You could cut this, work on consistency, boost the Pokemon lineups, add a 4th Trainer's Mail, add some more supporters. But this Garbodor is always going to be good. Things like Mega Rayquaza, things like Rainbow Road, they can all be hit from this Garbodor coming down. Mega Gardevoir is another one, which can take a pretty big hit. Because they start to 2-shot this Darkrai EX. If you Parallel City to get the Garbodor out, they can't Hooper, etc, etc. Garbodor is just really good in the format at the moment. So we're also going to be playing 2 Shaman EX for this setup ability. Drawn to, we have 6 cards, pretty standard card, and 1 Hooper EX. Just because most of the Pokemon we want to get out are EXs, Hooper can get them out pretty easily. On to supporters, kind of thin. We play 4 Professor Sycamore just because it's the best draw support, and really need 4 in this deck. 2 N. Don't really need more than 2 in here, personally. Again, if you do want to cut this Garbodor, go for consistency. A third N's not bad, but I think this deck does tend to take a bit of an early lead, so sometimes N can be a bit more of a hindrance than a help to you when playing this deck. 2 Lysander, just because this deck really likes having Lysander. It's just very good at being able to pick things off the bench quite easily that your opponent doesn't want you to touch. And then 1 Olympia. Whilst we are playing other switching cards, Olympia is just so good. It's one of my favorite cards in the format at the moment. Think I've started to play almost a one of in just about anything. It's kind of replaced AZ. It's like when you're playing stuff like Hooper, if you can't find the Floatstone, if you're under a Vile Plume lock, or something like that, even a Giratina lock where you can't play that Floatstone, you've already used your Escape Rope, Olympia is just a supporter card that you can play, get out of the active, heals 30 damage in the meantime as well, which can also sometimes be quite relevant. It might not seem like it, but sometimes they're healing that 30 damage. Say your opponent hits you for 100 on this guy, you Olympia, they heal 70, then they hit for another 100, you're still going to survive that. And that's just some of the things that Olympia is good at. And it's just a good switching card that you can VS Seeker for, which we play 4 of. Just put a supporter card from our discard pile into our hand. We really need 4 of in this deck, because we need 4 of in any deck. It's the most standard card in the Pokemon format at the moment. 4 Ultra Ball, again, just a standard card, helps us get our Hoopers, helps us get our Shamans, helps us get the Trubbish. 3 Trainer's Mail. I don't really think this deck needs more than 3. If it does, I think it's one of those decks that just tends to see Trainer's Mail when you play a Trainer's Mail. 3 is fine though, you can usually get the things you need out with it pretty easily. 1 Super Rod. Super Rod's really good if you're playing this Garbodor deck, because any deck that really revolves around evolutions should try and find room for this Super Rod, because you might have to Ultra Ball or Sycamore away this Garbodor. You want to get it back. Your opponent knocks it out, you might want to get it back. You might lose some energies, you want to hit more Max Elixirs. Super Rod can do that as well. Getting attackers back, it's just a really good card to have in pretty much any deck. If you've got the space for Super Rod, you may as well play it. 4 Max Elixir, this is the engine to this deck. It can help power up this Darkrai in 1 turn. It can help hit higher amounts of damage. If you're hitting these energies enough, you can potentially start one-shotting things on your first turn, which is always going to be good. It's just a very good card in this deck in particular. This plays mostly basics. You're really only going to be attaching energies to basics, so Max Elixir is good for that. 1 Escape Rope, again, just another switching card, and as I said before, this deck really likes to take things off of the bench that your opponent doesn't want you to take. There's so many examples, like anything in this deck can really knock out Shaman EX, for example, forcing your opponent to promote a Shaman EX, forcing your opponent to promote something like a Mega Mewtwo before it's got energies on it, or even like a Mewtwo, then you can Chaos Wheel, they can't get the tools, you've kind of locked this Mewtwo in place. There's just so many circumstances like that that Escape Rope's good for. And 2 Enhanced Hammer, I actually really like having Enhanced Hammer in this deck. It can slow your opponent down. It helps so much in the mirror match as well. Usually these decks do tend to play 1 Enhanced Hammer. If you're playing 2 in the mirror matchup, you can get this Giratina online pretty quick, start using this Chaos Wheel attack, and if your opponent gets it before you, you can double Enhanced Hammer, and then they've lost essentially 80 damage that this Darkrai could have done, you can get rid of. There are other circumstances, of course, things like Mega Mewtwo, Mega Rayquaza, even Mega Sizzle can tend to play special energies. These are some of the top decks. Rainbow Road plays the DCEs. There's just so many circumstances where Enhanced Hammer is just a good card. Moving on, we got 2 Parallel Cities. It's really the only stadium that this deck kind of works well with. You don't really see any other stadiums that would go well in this deck. There are, of course, things you could play, but I think Parallel City is just the best option for a deck like this, which is very disruption heavy, as well as just doing a lot of damage. Parallel City can slow your opponent down a lot, and it's good for that. We're going to play 2 Fighting Fury Belts in this deck. Don't really need more than this. Just beefs up the Darkrai, which is probably the main thing I use this for, is beefing up that Darkrai. 220 HP, non-mega, is very good. Also, it can help you Chaos Wheel for 110, which is enough to knock out Shaman, which is nice. 3 Floatstone, kind of the standard now if you're going to be playing Garbodor, or like a 2-2 Garbodor, is to play 3 Floatstone, especially if you're going to be playing this Hooper as well, because you want to make sure you can put a Floatstone onto this Hooper as well. We play 4 Double Dragon Energy. As I said, this not only lets your Giratina attack, but for each one of these Double Dragon Energies you put down, you're getting 2 Dark Energies onto this Darkrai's Dark Pulse attack. And then 10 Dark Energies, just because we want to be able to hit our elixirs pretty consistently. And that is going to round out the deck. We're going to jump now into some games and try this deck out. And here we go. By the looks of things, we're going to be going up against a Sizzle Garbodor deck, which probably isn't the worst matchup. I actually would say this matchup's pretty even, if not more so in our favor than my opponent's. Mega Sizzle doesn't really affect us too much if we don't focus heavily on the Giratina. If my opponent doesn't get the Garbodor out early, Giratina is going to be a real big threat to my opponent. Otherwise, just attacking with Darkrai in this matchup is going to be pretty big. Darkrai doesn't have any special energies. I only play the Parallel City, as does my opponent, presumably. I doubt they play anything else other than that Parallel City. They might play like a Silent Lab, but there's no real need to if you're playing the Garbodor. We'll find out, I suppose. So we're going to call the flip. Hopefully we can go first so we can kind of get a better setup for ourselves. We do lose the coin flip. That's okay. I imagine this matchup's pretty much going to be straightforward. We're not going to really need our Garbodor in this. My opponent needs to get the Garbodor. Hopefully if my opponent sees me with the Garbodor, they will go to discard their Garbodors and they won't worry about it. And then I can just come up with the Giratina. That might not be a play because it looks like we're starting Tina, which is not the best, and our hand is pretty average at this point. Alright, so my opponent's probably going to see this Giratina and then say, okay, I need to get the Garbodor out as soon as possible, which is a little unfortunate. I was hoping maybe they didn't think I was playing the Giratina. I mean, it's not hard to tell because they would have seen that I'm playing a Dark Dragon Psychic deck. So we're going to see a Fan Club from my opponent. An interesting card choice here. Fan Club really doesn't see too much play in anything at these days. Pops up here and there in Rainbow Road. My opponent's going to take a Trubbish and a Shaman. Taking that Trubbish, preparing for this Giratina. The other thing is if I can quickly knock out that Trubbish, then I could put myself in a pretty good position where this Giratina is going to be more effective later game. If I can just run my opponent all out of Trubbish. Otherwise, I think I should be fine if I just go, just power up a Darkrai and start hitting things for knockout. My opponent's going to Ultra Ball away a Sycamore and a Skylar for another Sizzle. So I imagine they must have something else in their hand. They might even Shaman it once again. They're just going to pass turn. Okay. So we draw into a Darkrai, which was really good to see. We could actually, if we hit this Elixir, we'll be in a very good position here, and we do, because we're going to be able to knock out this Trubbish. Oh, come on. Oh, for some reason the game has just like slowed down heaps. So we're going to get that energy there. We can attach onto the Darkrai, Fury Belt the Darkrai, Floatstone the active Giratina, Lysander that Trubbish, and then Shaman for 6. And that's really, really good. I am going to Shaman. Unfortunately, this Parallel City is going to be here, which is not very good for us because I don't really have a counter stadium. So I doubt my opponent's going to want to get rid of it for us. We do have the option to Ultra Ball. I don't think we really need it here. So we can just Dark Pulse, which will be a knockout on this Trubbish, which is actually very, very good, because now we can start to slowly power up that Giratina and lock my opponent down with that Giratina. We're going to draw into a Fighting Fury Belt. So next time we could probably grab ourselves another Darkrai. I think Darkrai is going to be probably our main attacker, just because my opponent always will have that option of seeking out that Trubbish for the Garbodor. We're going to see a VS Seeker for a Sycamore here. Let's see, did my opponent have it? They had the Garbodor in hand, so this is really, really good for us, because now they've had to get rid of a 1/1 line of that Garbodor. We're going to see another Ultra Ball here. I imagine they're probably going to search themselves a Trubbish. And getting rid of a Mega Sizzle and a Parallel City for that Trubbish. They are very heavily relying on this Trubbish here. They really need this Trubbish. A Cobalion coming down, and the Mega. And a Shaman setup for 5 cards. Can they find another energy to attack us this turn? Gonna see a Spirit Link. The energy attachment. Alright, so I imagine this is pretty much how this matchup is going to go. Is just kind of just trading prizes. If I could find myself a VS Seeker off the top deck, that'd be great, because then I could Lysander. If not, it's not the end of the world. I find myself a Garbodor. Okay, so I think I might just go Double Dragon Energy, Ultra Ball. I'm going to find myself a Darkrai here. Alright, we'll Fury Belt the Darkrai, and then we will just Sycamore. So this Darkrai is going to go out next turn, unless I hit a bunch of elixirs. It's most likely going to go out. I could bring something up off the bench. So I'm hitting for 110. So if they bring up this, they don't have a way of retreating. If they bring up this, they could float stone that, which is a bit of a problem for us. So I'm thinking at this point, I might just want to go for an escape rope play. 100 isn't really going to affect a Mega Scizor. Let's go for the escape rope. This could be the wrong play as well. I don't actually have much in my hand either, which is a little unfortunate. We're going to go for the escape rope play. Hopefully if the best option for them is to bring up the Cobalion, because the Cobalion will survive the attack, and they can also float stone it. They're going to bring up the Shaman, so this is actually going to put us into a good position here, because we're going to take a 3-prize lead on my opponent, which isn't always the best, especially against a deck such as Mega Scizor. But we might be able to steal a win here if I can find myself a Max Elixir. We find ourselves a VS Seeker and a Hooper, not the cards I was really hoping for. Just because if I can find myself a Max Elixir, I can power up this Darkrai, Lysander once again, knock out another Shaman, and then I just need one prize card, which will be good for us. If we miss that, I don't think it matters too much. My opponent's going to get another Mega Scizor down, and an end from my opponent. So they are going to end us down to 3. Hopefully I can find a way to draw into some more cards here. Not the cards I was hoping for. We can Ultra Ball and find ourselves a Shaman, but then we're going to have 2 Shamans sitting on our bench, which isn't the best against the Mega Scizor deck, which can easily just Lysander and knock them out, but I think that might be our only play here. I could also double Dragon Energy. It's a tough call for me to make here if I double Dragon Energy this Giratina or not. Or I go for the energy attachment on the Darkrai. We are going to see the Iron Crusher knockout here on this active Darkrai. We'll go up into the Giratina just because it does have that float stone on it. And let's see if we can find something from this. We find ourselves a float stone. I think I might Ultra Bowl away the Dark and the float stone. And we'll grab ourselves a Shaman. I'm just going to double Dragon Energy. Because at least this guy can attack it. It's not going to get one shot. And we will Shaman set up. And I could also potentially knock out that Garbodor as well. I missed the card I was hoping for. We missed the Elixir as well. I was really hoping to see a Lysander there, but we don't get it. That's okay. We can Ultra Ball now. We'll just thin our deck out. We'll just take this Hooper and then Sycamore. Okay, so that's not the best. I would have liked a Lysander there, because then I could have Lysandered up the Trubbish and knocked that out, and put myself in a very good position here. We're going to need to get a Max Elixir onto this Darkrai. We could also go for a Darkrai attack and save our double Dragon Energies here. Although my opponent doesn't actually have anything. I'm not going to actually take any of those because I don't want them. Although my opponent doesn't currently have the Garbodor down, so we might be okay here just going for a Chaos Wheel, and then next turn if we can find the Dark Energy, knock this guy out. Alright, so let's see what my opponent can do. They're going to need to find the Garbodor to knock us out. This could be a scary position for us. I don't really particularly like the idea of using Professor Sycamore here, so my opponent is going to go for a Skylar, and this is presumably going to find them a Garbodor. We're going to see the Ultra Ball from my opponent. Well, this is not a good position for us because I don't currently have a way of knocking anything out next turn. I'm going to need a dig for it, and I don't like the idea of Sycamoring away 2 VS Seekers. I haven't actually played any, so it might be my best bet here. So Iron Crusher, gonna get rid of one of our double Dragon Energies, which sucks, but it's not the end of the world. We've got 18 cards left in deck. We should hopefully be able to knock out this guy, and then we're just a Lysander away. There was the Lysander I was chasing. At the moment, Lysander's not going to do us too much. We're going to Sycamore, dropping 2 VS Seekers reluctantly, and we're going to find ourselves a double Dragon Energy. Can we find a Max Elixir? We don't find ourselves a Max Elixir, so we're going to take the Ultra Ball here. We don't even find ourselves a basic dark, so we're just going to... Oh, that is a very, very bad thing to happen to us. I could just retreat into a shaman, let the shaman die. My opponent has one card in hand. They VS Seeked for a Skylar last turn, so that card has to be something. So you know what? Let's just go for this. I'm going to Floatstone a Shaman. And then we'll go for the Chaos Wheel. Hit for 100. This is going to go down this turn. But hopefully my opponent really doesn't have much else going for them and we can get something good off of it. We're going to see the other VS Seeker. Now for an N. Okay. That was going to be my play. Was N. So we're really just hoping to find a Dark Energy at this point. I believe I've got some in there. I should still have at least 4 Dark Energy in there. Unless I've prized 3 of it, then I would have 1. So there should at least be a minimum of 1 Dark Energy in the deck. And we do find a Super Rod and a VS Seeker, which is going to be very, very good. The scary thing is now that my opponent has taken another prize card, this could be really bad because they could have the Lysander and knock out a Shaman, which we would lose the game then. So the idea here is going to be Super Rod. This is going to be really, really close actually. So we're going to Super Rod. I think we just go for the Dark Energies to ensure that I hit them here. Giratina doesn't really do much for me at this stage in the game. And then we're going to VS Seeker. I believe I have an N in here. We're going to choose the N, put my opponent down to 2, and hopefully I can find a Dark from this. Just because if I don't N here, I do fear that my opponent might just have the Lysander to bring up a Shaman and knock it out. So we're going to go for this, and we miss the energy, but we find an Elixir. Can we find the Dark Energy of this Elixir? Come on. We do. 4 of them. Brilliant. Okay, so we are going to knock out this Mega Sizzle here with this Darkrai, and then from there we might be able to sneak away with this game. I'm going to Dark Pulse for the knockout. 70 damage. And let's see, what can we get off the prizes? We find ourselves a Garbodor and another Dark Energy. Not the best. Now, I actually probably should have taken a Giratina back. That was kind of a big regret, not taking another Tina. Okay, that could come back to haunt me here. Of course, if my opponent has a Lysander, they are going to win this game regardless. So let's see, what does my opponent have? They've gone through 3 VS Seekers, I believe, at this stage. Yeah, 3 VS Seekers and 1 Lysander. Do they have the cards to do it or not? We're going to see the Iron Crusher for 120. This is very scary because I need to somehow take a prize this turn, and I don't see a way of me doing it because I didn't grab back that Giratina. We find ourselves another Dark Energy. I can't see myself winning this now. I don't believe I've got a way out of this. I'm just gonna N again. I'm ending myself to 1 actually, which is horrible. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. We lost that one. We'll just concede. I can't win it. I should have got back a Giratina. That was a big regret of mine. Not getting back just 1 Tina. I could have double Dragon Energy. Then I would have had a better chance. I don't think I would have won still, because I didn't have the Lysander. But I still could have had a better shot at what I did. So we did lose to Sizzle, unfortunately. I thought also missed the Lysander a bit earlier to knock out that other Trubbish. That would have been helpful. It's a tough matchup when that Garbodor does come into play. And also only playing like the 2 Darkrai, 2 Tina. That's kind of where the downside is for playing such a minimum line of attackers. Can come back to haunt you when you go up against those matchups where you really need to have a lot of them. So we're going to go up against the Water, Colors, and Dark deck. I don't really know what this is. It could be some version of Yveltal with like Glaceon or Manaphy in it. I can't think of what this deck would be. My opponent is calling it the flip. It could be like Primal Kyogre with Weavile in it, I suppose. Just pick up the tool card. They've got the Dark Sleeves and the Dark Deck box. We are going to start with a Trubbish to a pretty decent hand here. We've got the Hooper, we've got an Ultra Ball. Got a Float Stone as well. So this is a pretty good hand. This is kind of one of the ideal hands you do hope to see when you're playing this deck. Just a lot of options for us. So we're going to go see a Sharpedo EX. Alright, that's different. My opponent's going to attach the energy. Trainer's Mail. I really hope they don't N. Find a Sycamore, which is good. This guy can get rid of our energies. Can't it? Discard an energy attached to this Pokemon? Yeah, okay. So they can discard our energies, which can be a little annoying. We're going to see an Ultra Ball getting rid of a Ranger and an Experience Share, was that? Yeah. So this could take them probably a Shaman EX. I'd really like to know what the water type is in this deck. Oh, Slowking. Okay, so they're going for an energy disruption deck. Okay, I get it. I don't really know how it goes against my deck. So we're going to Float Stone here. We're going to Ultra Ball away, an Ultra Ball and a Dark Energy. And we're just going to take, I think, probably just another Darkrai. And then we can put that on the bench. I'll attach the energy to the Darkrai. I'm okay doing this. And then we can Hooper. Scoundrel Rings, we'll find ourselves a Giratina, probably another Darkrai. I think that's going to be more crucial to us here, and the Shaman EX. I think in matchups like this, you really do just want to focus on the Darkrai. I don't believe my opponent will be playing special energies because this is a 3 single energy attachment, so I don't think Giratina is really good for that. Can't think of any tool cards or stadium cards that I don't really feel like having down with the Giratina. So I think just focusing heavily on the Darkrai is going to be fine for us. We can Shaman Setup to draw 5 cards. We'll find ourselves on Olympia and N. I don't really like any of those. I might just hang on to this. I do have the Olympia, so if we do get a Hunt next turn, we can still come up. Alright, I'm just going to sit on this. Alright, so as that, it actually does 30 as well, so Olympia will fully heal it. I can't picture a way that they get this thing healed. I can't remember if Slowking only moves energies from the active. I mean, we'll find out now. Active Pokemon to one of his or her benched. Okay, so my opponent also did have the second one, which I completely forgot that they had in their hand. So maybe I should have end there. That's okay. I do have that Olympia in hand to get out of a Hunt from my opponent. They're going to bring up the Darkrai actually, so I don't really need to bother. Could probably just go for an N. So we'll attach energy, Fighting Fury Belt, and now we can N. Now I do want to get the Garbodor set up so Slowking is pretty much redundant in this matchup. That's going to be pretty big for us. And we also find ourselves a Parallel City. So we're going to go for an Ultra Ball, discard probably the Trubbish and the Dark Energy. I think we'll keep the rest of that. I probably should have got rid of the N actually. We'll grab the Garbodor. Get this Garbotoxin online. We're going to Parallel City and drop myself down to 3. So I can get rid of this Hooper and Shaman EX. 2 Pokemon I don't want to sit on my bench. And then we can just Dark Pulse for 70 now. And energy is likely to get discarded from us, which I don't actually think is a huge deal for a deck like this. We do have the N as well in hand. I think we're okay at this point. Yeah, they're gonna do 100. They're pretty much 3-shotting us if we get a Fury Belt on it. Of course, there is already 30 damage on this active one. But you're gonna see the discards of the energy, which is fine. We're gonna find ourselves another VS. We're just gonna N my opponent. So we are going to attach. I got the option to Super Rod. I think I'll Trainer's Mail before I do that. So we're going to attach. I'm kind of hoping I can find an Elixir here. We don't. We'll find the Float Stone. That's okay. So this Darkrai is going to go down, which is actually kind of annoying, really. We're going to Dark Pulse here. So I'm going to save the Super Rods for when I can get a Darkrai into play. Hit for 70 damage, 140. Of course, my opponent does need another energy to knock us out. We could pretty easily knock out my opponent. I haven't seen a single Max Elixir yet, so Hopefully we can find them. We do have an option to N as well, which is going to be good. We're going to see the Bunnelby coming down from my opponent as well. Max Elixir from my opponent. But we're going to start pairing up this bench Sharpedo EX. So my opponent really only has so much energy in this deck. So eventually I think they'll just run out of it. Alright, and they do have that Slowking there, which is just kind of sitting there doing nothing anymore because I've got the Garbodor up. So we're going to see the Hunt, actually, so interesting choice from my opponent. Going to bring up this other Darkrai. Hit us for 40 with the Fury Belt. Okay, so now I'm going to go for a Super Rod. Now I'm okay doing this just because I'd rather not Sycamore it away. So we'll get back the 3 Darks, and then we're just going to go for the Professor Sycamore. If I can find myself the 3rd Float Zone, the Escape Rope even, I'd be happy. Preferably the Float Stone, but I'll take an Escape Rope if I have to. We won't take any of that. I don't think my opponent's playing Special Energy. I probably should have taken the Enhanced Hammer, so it's one less card in the deck. I'm going to go for the Escape Rope here, which I actually think is a good card in this position. Let's see what my opponent chooses to promote. The Bunnelby it is. We'll just go into Darkrai, I suppose, and hit for a knockout. I'm going to double Dragon Energy. Yeah, we will go for the double Dragon and then Dark Pulse. I actually probably shouldn't have done that because my opponent probably plays Hammers. I probably should have just attached to the Darkrai. Oh well, we find ourselves a Lysander, which is okay. This guy's going to come active anyway, so I think I'm in a decent enough position here. This Darkrai could possibly go down this turn, which is okay. I still wouldn't consider myself to be behind. I do have ways of knocking this thing out, and my opponent really doesn't have anything after that. They go for a Ranger just to Sycamore away. Okay, fair enough. My opponent actually could have... no, they couldn't have. I was going to say they could have Lysandered this guy and then Hunt for 40 onto this, but I do have the Fury Belt. They attach to the bench. Looks like they're probably just going to go for another Hunt play here. My opponent actually concedes the game, and that is all I've got time for today. We lost to the Sizzler deck, which was actually kind of a shame. I actually thought we were going to win that one. We got a little unlucky there, but well, that's Giratina for you. That other matchup was a lot better. I think my opponent actually thought they had enough energies on the active to knock us out, and that's why they conceded. That shows off the deck a bit. I do want to come back to this deck because it's actually a deck that I think, looking past evolutions, is still going to be pretty relevant. It does have the one bad matchup, I think, still with Rainbow Road. I just can't see the Rainbow Road match being super good for this deck. Not only does Xerneas have resistance to Dark, but Giratina's got weakness to Fairy. Even with the Parallel City down, Xerneas can still knock out Giratina very easily. Even with the Fury Belt because of Volcanion EX. So that's probably the bad matchup for this deck. The Mega Sizzle matchup I still think is relatively fair. If you can keep up with the deck, get a good start. If you can knock out those Trubbishes before they evolve, you pretty much win just because you sit there behind a Giratina and they can't really do much. But that was Darkrai Giratina. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the Pokestraya YouTube channel, and also give us a like on Facebook. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.